I was sitting by the floor-to-ceiling window of my downtown apartment, the silk of my cream blouse brushing softly against my wrist as I sipped my morning coffee. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos, cars honking, people rushing to their offices, oblivious to the private battles we all carried. My phone buzzed on the marble counter, and I knew, without even looking, who it was. It was Madison, my niece, sending a string of emojis and a message that made my stomach tighten. "Can we talk tonight at the family dinner?" Something in the casual tone made my pulse quicken. I hadn't seen most of my family in months, not since they'd written me off as the struggling one. I adjusted the necklace that lay against my collarbone, its gold chain cool under my fingers. I had inherited it from Grandma June, the woman who had quietly whispered, "Never let anyone define your worth, Emily." That necklace was more than an heirloom. It was a reminder of resilience, of battles fought in silence. As I stared at the reflection of the city behind me, my thoughts wandered between pride and unease. Could one night really change the narrative they had painted of me for years? The thought made me shiver, not from fear, but anticipation. Tonight, everything might come crashing in, or perhaps, for the first time, I'd finally have the upper hand. I remember the night like it was yesterday. I was 24, fresh out of college, my first apartment barely furnished, and my savings almost non-existent. My family had come over to celebrate my graduation. I'd imagined laughter, clinking glasses, and congratulations, but what I got instead was dismissal. "Emily, are you serious about this? You're not ready for the real world," my Aunt Carla sneered, brushing her perfectly styled hair over her shoulder. My heart sank. The lump in my throat made swallowing a challenge, and I could feel my hands trembling in my lap. My cousin Madison, barely 16 then, rolled her eyes, smirking as if to echo every word of their judgment. Grandma June, ever the quiet observer, reached over and laid a hand on mine. Her rings felt heavy and grounding. "You have your own path, Emily. Don't let their noise drown your voice," she whispered. Her words were gentle, but the conviction in her eyes ignited something I hadn't realized was there: determination. Later that night, after the chatter had faded and my family had gone home, I sat on my tiny balcony, clutching the necklace Grandma had pressed into my hand earlier that day. "This isn't just jewelry," she had said. "It's a reminder that your value isn't in their approval." The cool metal against my palm reminded me that while the world could underestimate me, it could never take away my choices. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would not wait for validation. I would build my life on my own terms, brick by brick, even if it meant walking alone. I whispered into the dark, "I'll prove them wrong, and I'll do it quietly, without needing their applause." The sting of being dismissed, of seeing my own blood laugh at my dreams, fueled every decision I made afterward. It wasn't hatred, exactly, it was clarity. The necklace rested against my chest as if to affirm the pact I had made with myself. Resilience over recognition, independence over approval. After that night, I threw myself into building a life that was entirely my own. I rented a tiny studio apartment in Chicago, far from my family's constant judgment. The streets outside were noisy and imperfect, but they were mine to navigate. Grandma June's necklace lay in a small velvet pouch on my dresser every night, a talisman reminding me of the promise I had made to myself. I found work at a small but ambitious interior design firm. My mentor, Claire Donovan, was a seasoned designer with a sharp eye and a gentle belief in talent. "Emily," she said during my first week, "don't let anyone tell you what you're capable of. Your ideas are yours, stand by them." Her words resonated in a way that no family lecture ever could. The early mornings were brutal. I learned to make designs pop with a shoestring budget, to negotiate with vendors, to endure clients who doubted a 20-something woman could handle their multi-million-dollar projects. There were nights I cried into my pillow, exhausted and lonely, wondering if I was making a dent at all. But each morning, I would put on my cream silk blouse, tuck Grandma's necklace under my collar, and step into the world with quiet determination. The first big client came after months of pitching. A boutique hotel wanted a full redesign, and I spent days sketching, researching, and presenting concepts that I knew would impress. When they said yes, I felt a rush I had never known. The validation I sought, earned without any family applause. Then came the first profitable sale of a custom furniture line I designed. Each win was small but monumental. $2,000 here, $5,000 there. Step by step, I built momentum, always careful to keep my successes out of my family's reach. I avoided posting photos of my work on social media that could reach them, using instead private portfolios and discreet contacts. I didn't want them to see my rise before I was ready. It wasn't revenge, it was strategy. I wanted my accomplishments to speak louder than any insult or doubt they had ever thrown at me. By the third year, I had a small but thriving business, a circle of clients who trusted me implicitly, and the beginnings of financial independence. My apartment was modest but elegant, the walls adorned with artwork I had saved for, furniture I had designed, each piece a testament to the hours of work and dedication I had poured in. Still, the necklace never left my side. It reminded me that every struggle, every insult, every dismissive glance I endured as a young woman had a purpose. It had fueled my discipline, shaped my ambition, and quietly marked my transformation from the girl my family underestimated into a woman capable of commanding a room, a career, and her own destiny. By the time I returned home for the next family gathering, I was no longer the girl who trembled at judgment. I was Emily, quietly powerful, accomplished, and in control of my own story. The night of the family dinner arrived, and I walked into the sprawling house that had once felt like a cage. The familiar scent of roasted chicken and scented candles hit me, and I reminded myself to breathe. My heels clicked softly against the polished hardwood floors, a quiet punctuation to my presence. The room fell momentarily silent when I entered. My Aunt Carla's eyes widened, my uncle's jaw tightened, and Madison looked intrigued. They had expected the frazzled, insecure Emily, who had been dismissed years ago. Instead, they saw a woman poised and elegant, radiating quiet confidence. I had chosen my outfit carefully, a tailored navy dress, understated jewelry, and of course, Grandma June's necklace, now gleaming under the soft chandelier light. My hair was pulled into a sleek bun, and my makeup was natural but perfect, enough to suggest effort without shouting it. The conversation started lightly, awkwardly. My cousins asked about my work, and I deflected with vague, modest phrases, letting their assumptions fill in the blanks. Then Madison, with that same smirk she had worn as a teenager, leaned over and grabbed the necklace from my neck. "Is this real, Aunt Emily?" "It looks fake," she said, flicking it between her fingers as if testing its value. The room stiffened. I felt a flicker of anger, but held it at bay, letting her ignorance speak for itself. I calmly reached for the necklace, letting it rest in my palm. "Actually," I said softly, "you're wrong." I excused myself and brought the necklace to the appraisal I had secretly arranged earlier that week. The certified document had been delivered to my handbag. Pulling it out, I handed it to my mother, letting her read it aloud. The room went silent. Madison froze, her eyes widening as the words sank in. Certified appraisal, $50,000. The disbelief on their faces was palpable. My uncle dropped his fork, Carla's hand flew to her mouth, and Madison's smirk evaporated entirely, replaced by a stunned, almost guilty expression. $50,000? My mother whispered, her voice tinged with shame. I let the silence linger, letting them absorb the truth that I had quietly built my life without their help or acknowledgement. Their judgment, their dismissal, and their condescension had fueled me, not broken me. I smiled, a small, controlled curve of lips, the necklace glinting between my fingers. "I've kept my work and achievements private," I said, my voice calm but strong. Not because I wanted to hide them, but because I wanted them to speak for themselves. I didn't need approval, and I certainly didn't need ridicule. That's the real value of this necklace. It reminds me of my resilience, not anyone else's opinion. Madison looked down, unable to meet my eyes. The room's energy had shifted completely. For the first time, they were seeing me as the woman I had become, accomplished, independent, and unshakably confident. No lecture, no shouting, just undeniable proof of my worth. The dinner continued, but the tone was changed forever. I no longer felt small or unseen. The quiet power in the room belonged to me now, and the $50,000 appraisal had done what words never could. It had silenced judgment and elevated respect. After the initial shock had settled, I realized the room had shifted. For years, my family had assumed I would bend, excuse their insults, and quietly accept my place in their hierarchy. But tonight, I was holding the upper hand. I could see it in their faces, the hesitation, the uncertainty, the realization that the Emily they knew no longer existed. I let the tension hang for a few beats, savoring the quiet power of restraint. Then I spoke, my voice calm but firm. I want to make something clear. I can help, I can support, but it won't be on the terms you're used to. Carla frowned, folding her arms. What do you mean? I looked at each of them in turn, letting my gaze linger on Madison, whose eyes still avoided mine. It means I will help if you're willing to change. If you're ready to respect boundaries, pursue your own dreams, and leave behind the toxic patterns that have held us back, then we can move forward. Otherwise, we continue as we are, apart, but civil. Madison shifted uncomfortably. Like, what kind of changes? I smiled faintly. Carla, it's about recognizing that your words carry weight. You cannot dismiss or belittle someone who is working hard. Uncle David, your habit of micromanaging everyone's lives has to stop. And Madison, I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. You will treat others' achievements with respect. You may not yet understand their value, but you will learn. The room was silent again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was attentive. They were listening. I could feel it. This wasn't about shame or anger anymore. It was about accountability, growth, and reclaiming the relationships that had once been strained. I am not doing this out of spite, I continued. I am doing this because I believe in all of you and because I care. But care doesn't mean compromise. Respect has to be earned and given equally. Their expressions softened, realization dawning. My aunt nodded slowly, a tentative acknowledgement. Uncle David exhaled, and Madison, finally meeting my gaze, seemed smaller but more aware. I took a breath, letting the moment solidify. If we're going to rebuild this family, it has to be built on honesty, accountability, and mutual respect. I've proven to myself what I am capable of. Now I need to see if you're capable too. It was not a lecture, not a punishment. It was a blueprint for change, a set of conditions that would either save or transform our family dynamic. I wasn't giving ultimatums. I was offering an opportunity for them to rise, just as I had. The necklace glinted under the chandelier, a symbol of resilience and measured authority. I realized that real power isn't about revenge or boasting. It's about creating space for others to grow while standing firm in your own worth. Tonight, I was both protector and guide, and the balance of respect had finally shifted. Weeks passed after that dinner, and I began to notice subtle changes. Carla reached out, asking for advice on starting her own small business, genuinely seeking guidance instead of asserting control. Uncle David called to discuss a volunteering opportunity he had always dismissed as not worth his time, and Madison, surprisingly, sent me a message about a scholarship program she wanted to apply for. It was slow, incremental, but it was progress, the kind that mattered. I watched from my apartment as the city lights blinked on, the same view that had once witnessed my tears and my whispered promises. The necklace rested over my heart, warm and familiar, a reminder of the journey I had endured. Every insult, every dismissal, every laugh at my expense had been a stepping stone to this moment, where the woman I had become was fully visible, not just to the world, but to the people who mattered most. I realized that the true power of that $50,000 necklace wasn't its monetary value. It was a symbol of my resilience, my patience, and the choices I had made when no one else believed in me. It was Grandma June's gift, a talisman that reminded me that strength comes quietly, steadily, and from within. One evening, Madison came to visit, hesitant but determined. She looked nervous, her hands fidgeting, but she smiled. I just wanted to say thank you," she said softly, "for believing I could do better and for showing me how." I nodded, feeling a swell of pride that had nothing to do with money or status.
"You're learning," I said.
And that's what matters. Growth takes time, but it's worth every step. As she left, I stood by the window again, the city alive beneath me, and thought about the path I had walked. The girl who trembled at judgment had become a woman who could command a room with silence, who could set boundaries with kindness and firmness, and who had transformed her pain into purpose. I touched the necklace one last time and whispered, almost to myself, "I am enough. Always have been, always will be." And in that quiet moment, I felt complete, not because they finally saw my worth, but because I had always known it. The journey had taught me that real strength is not in proving them wrong, but in proving to yourself that you are unshakable, independent, and fully, beautifully you. Bottom of form.